European Commissioner for Enlargement.
All the member states are confronted with three big challenges: the challenge of peace, the challenge of freedom, and the challenge of prosperity. And all those challenges can only be met through the European dimension. These are not my words, but I use them as the motto of my mandate. Does it sound familiar? Ladies and gentlemen, these are the words from the first President of the European Parliament, Simone Weil, and she said them in 1979 during her first speech as a President of the European Parliament. And in this same speech, she described Europe as an island of freedom surrounded by regimes where force prevails. And she argued that to safeguard peace, freedom, and prosperity in Europe, we should bring in and stabilize Greece, Spain, and Portugal, who had just freed themselves from dictatorship. In the 90s and early 2000s, we followed the same model. To stabilize our continent, we brought the newly free countries of Central and Eastern Europe into the European Union. My Slovenia was part of it. It happened in 2004. This was our way to react to the biggest geopolitical realignment on our continent since the Second World War. And to this day, this has been one of the greatest geopolitical successes of our Union. Today, we are again seeing the acceleration of a geopolitical realignment that has been going on for many years, but which is shaking the foundations of our continent. We face not just Russia, but increasingly the indifference of our oldest ally. And also today, as we see the tide of freedom receding on the global stage, and Europe once again at risk of becoming an island, the European dimension is the only way to meet the challenges we face: peace, freedom, and prosperity, as in Simone Weil's time, and I would add, security. Today, we once again need to stabilize our neighborhood as we have done in the 80s and again in the 2000s. But unlike in those past attempts, we are now facing adversaries who do everything they can to see us fail. And this is the biggest change in all the enlargement before. Never before there were external destructive forces who wanted to see Europe fail. And this is why I believe that the geopolitical situation we face demands bold decisions. To successfully enlarge our union at this historic juncture, we need to work towards a faster and deeper integration of candidate countries in areas such as the internal market, energy and defense, first and foremost in Ukraine. In this endeavor, I have the support of the whole Commission. In her mission letters, President von der Leyen has tasked every single member of her college to play an active role in supporting candidate countries. This means our candidates cannot just count on me, but on the expertise and dedication of the entire Commission. We showed that last week when President von der Leyen and we, the whole college of commissioners, went to Kiev. With us, we had an ambitious energy security package mirroring what we had earlier done in Moldova with the help of Commissioner Jørgensen. This package will fully integrate Ukraine into the EU electricity market, but also unlock the full potential of Ukraine's vast gas storages. 80% of them are located close to the EU member states. And this will generate income for Ukraine, and it will increase the energy security for both the European Union and Ukraine. It's a win-win. We also are working on plans to accelerate the integration of Ukraine into many more parts of the single market, to attract more investments, to strengthen Europe-wide value chains, and to create new opportunities, not just for the Ukrainian, but also for the European businesses. And this will be a stepping stone to speed up the reconstruction of Ukraine, which has already started. Under the skillful guidance of Commissioner Dombrovskis, we have also taken bold steps to the proceeds from immobilized Russian assets in the EU to provide around 45 billion of G7 extraordinary revenue acceleration loans, which is giving Ukraine much needed liquidity in these difficult times. And then there is defense. Here, the very same logic applies, but it's somewhat reversed manner. In defense, Ukraine has a lot to give. The integration of its highly innovative and thriving defense industry, as we have heard, with its capacity to scale, could be a fire starter for a much more integrated European defense market. Ukraine can be an enormous asset for a European Union that has to take more responsibility for our own security. The new Rearm Europe plan proposed by President von der Leyen earlier this week and aiming to mobilize close to 800 billion euro is a step in this direction. If adopted, the European Investment Bank will play a crucial role to ensure its success. I love to say that accession to the European Union is not a sprint, it is a marathon. It takes dedication, resilience, and steady progress. But every step forward brings real, tangible benefits long before the finish line is reached. Just as marathon runner passes key milestones on the way, candidate countries can achieve important reforms, attract investments, and strengthen their economies throughout the journey. Enlargement is not just about the destination, it is about the transformation along the way. The EU is supporting this journey by further integrating candidate countries into the European energy, defense and internal market, and also by providing funding, expertise and access to key programs that help modernize institutions, improve infrastructure and create opportunities for citizens and businesses. And this is why we are front-loading some of these benefits through our 3 facilities: the Ukraine facility, the Reform and Growth facility for the Western Balkans, and as soon as adopted, also the Reform and Growth facility for Moldova. I'm talking about 50 billion, 6 billion, and 1.9 billion for the last Moldova facility. Here we are working closely with international financial institutions which can benefit from EU loan guarantees to facilitate investments in areas like infrastructure, education and technological innovation. Thanks to our strong partnership with the EIB, EBRD, the World Bank Group and our European financial institutions, we are amplifying the impact of the EU budget by mobilizing additional funding and engaging the private sector. Without the private sector, we cannot do a lot. Take an example from Ukraine. Last September, a consortium led by French investor Xavier Niel invested more than €500 million in acquiring and merging LifeCell, one of Ukraine's largest mobile operators, and data group Volia, one of Ukraine's largest fixed telecom and pay television providers. This historic transaction will support the growth and modernization of Ukraine's telecom infrastructure in line already with EU standards. It was also the first major investment by a new market entrant and major strategic investor since the full-fledged invasion, and it was made possible thanks to a joint loan by the EBRD and IFC, which was backed by EU and French guarantees. Thank you for this. Deals like this are a clear vote of confidence in the European future of candidate countries and their economic potential, and a proof that we can achieve great things by joining efforts. With the Ukraine facility, the EU is backing Ukraine with long-term, reliable support. Besides substantial budget support and technical assistance under the Ukraine investment framework, we are providing financial guarantees and grants that are already making a difference. So far, we have secured 1.4 billion euro to help Ukraine rebuild. And by working with financial partners like the European Investment Bank and the EBRD, we unlocked an additional 6 billion in investments, strengthening Ukraine's energy system, rebuilding cities, and boosting its economy. Today, we have signed a new, as we have heard, EU guarantee with the EIB that will unlock additional 2 billion for investments in critical public sector projects. And this guarantee will further support urgent recovery and reconstruction projects in Ukraine, targeting critical infrastructure, including energy, transport, housing, water and heating, while also advancing the country's EU integration. And we are doing all this, negotiating for the EU membership during the country is at war. This is the first time that we are negotiating for the membership with one country being at war. Similarly, in the Western Balkans, as I have said, we have mobilized 6 billion euro in grants and loans to drive economic reforms and speed up the accession process, as well as the integration into the EU single market. The Western Balkan Investment Framework is the key platform for the implementation of the Reform and Growth Facility, and we count on the existing good collaboration with EIB and other institutions to ensure that the facility delivers on its ambitions. And similar growth plan for Moldova, I was already telling, 1.9 billion. In addition to our facilities, the Commission has also been actively engaging with the EIB and with the Turkish authorities to prepare the ground for the bank's re-engagement in Turkey in priority sectors. So long as Turkey is willing to engage constructively while respecting our fundamental values, we are ready to work together. Our goal is clear. We invest in our future by investing in our candidates and partners. Stronger financial incentives, faster and deeper market integration will benefit all of us. And this brings me to my final point, reforms. Just like loan guarantees, de-risk investments, so do the reform that we are helping candidate countries implement in their accession path. Why do we insist so much on the rule of law? Because it is a crucial economic factor. Investors need to be confident that contracts will be upheld, regulations will remain stable, and disputes can be fairly resolved in court. Our efforts to integrate our candidates deeper and faster into our single market can only pay dividends if European investors and businesses know they will find a business climate that is predictable and safe. So, when I speak about enlargement today, of course, it is different than it was 5 years back. There is a new geopolitical momentum. But enlargement is not a favor to candidate countries. It is an investment into our peace, freedom, prosperity, and security. And every reform is a step towards a stronger economy, a fairer society, and a future within the European Union. And with the EU support and guarantees, that future does not have to wait. Investment opportunities and progress can start now only if we dare, and we do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Kos. And now, to follow on from this, a great pleasure to welcome to the stage Odile Renaud-Basso, who is the President of the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development.
Thank you very much, and very happy to be here to discuss enlargement challenges and opportunities. And I think that the Commissioner Kos has rightly highlighted the strategic importance of EU enlargement. This is a very timely discussion, and as she said, we can all see that geopolitical developments have created a new momentum for enlargement. A new dynamic is in play. It brings with it new opportunities, both for candidate countries, but also for the EU itself. And this new global landscape offers great potential to achieve three goals. First, to further unite the continent. Second, to enlarge the single market. And third, to stimulate more economic growth. And this is true for the countries joining the EU or preparing to join the EU, as well as for the whole EU. These opportunities go with challenges. Geopolitical tension, war in Ukraine, divisions and tensions in the Western Balkans, needed reform in the EU to be able to function with a much larger number of members. But I believe that we really need to build on the momentum to make rapid progress. And multilateral development banks can play a crucial role in supporting this momentum and contributing to the success of enlargement, both individually, each MDB, but also in partnership with each other. One of them, of course, our host today is the EIB. But EBRD supporting and accompanying enlargement is also at the core of our mandate. And we can build upon the experience of the first wave of enlargement that took place in the mid-2000s. MDBs mobilize vital investments and advance policy alignment with EU standards. And we work in close partnership with EU institutions, and the Commission in particular, and national governments to ensure candidate countries are ready for successful integration. Our mandate, historically, is to help build open market economies. And we have always recognized that such a transition to open market economies must be rooted in shared values and adherence to the rule of law. When looking at the first wave of EU enlargement, we can see that the transformation of the economies that took place was extremely deep. And we have provided both finance and policy support on price and trade liberalization, privatization, institutional reforms. Progress in Central and Eastern Europe has also brought the development of a vibrant SME sector, effective regulation of key infrastructure sectors, and the restructuring of heavy industry to become competitive. In all, 11 of our countries of operation have now become, and now for more than 20 years ago, become EU members. And the economies which joined in the EU in 2004, have enjoyed an EU accession bonus. There's a benefit from EU accession beyond what could have been expected purely from income convergence and macroeconomic growth of around 17 percentage points, so huge stimulus. And this enlargement also stimulated growth in the EU itself, increasing its growth potential. Looking forward, institutions such as the EBRD and the EIB have a unique and important role to apply the lessons learned so far to a new generation of EU candidates. And they include Ukraine, Moldova, and countries in the Western Balkans. The finance the EBRD alone has provided to these enlargement countries is considerable. Cumulative investment in these countries so far is approaching 50 billion euros. In Ukraine, EBRD deployed more than 6.3 billion euros since 2022, supporting the country's real economy, and 58% of this financing in the private sector, but also key infrastructure, as it was mentioned before. So how can our targeted investment and private sector development in candidate countries support the new wave of EU enlargement process today? Enlargement is not just a matter of formal policy alignment and taking the acquis communautaire. It's about economic transformation and building economies that thrive in the single market. This is core to the Copenhagen criteria, which stress the market economy and competitiveness. And to achieve this, both reforms and investments are required. Because I'm a banker, I will start with investments. we as MDB can play an important role in this area, starting with the mobilization of capital and de-risking investments. MDBs help narrow the gap and level the playing field for companies in the candidate countries. These investments support the functioning of the market economy and also help businesses with increased market pressures once they have joined the single market. Let's take the example of SMEs, which illustrates this point perfectly. Despite their vital economic role, SMEs often struggle with significant shortages of management skills, access to finance, and ability to adapt to digital and green transition. That's why both finance and advisory work are needed to help SMEs improve, grow, and become attractive to private lenders. We do this hand in hand with the European Commission. For instance, with the Regional SME Competitiveness Policy Priorities Programme to enhance competitiveness of small businesses in 6 Western Balkan countries. Working with the EU through the Western Balkans investment framework, we have jointly achieved significant results that support their European integration and that I think none of us could have achieved alone. Similarly, we appreciate EU initiative and efforts with growth plans for the Western Balkans and Moldova. And there are a potential game changer and reflect just the right sort of pragmatism. Because I think these new plans bring some of the benefits of EU membership in advance of accession, so creating a dynamic and giving access to some part of the EU policies ahead of the full accession. This boosts economic growth, accelerate much-needed socio-economic convergence, and should, at the end, speed up enlargement. So finance is key to our work, but finance alone is not enough. And we need to support essential policy reform and the creation of what I call soft infrastructure, which is needed for a positive enabling environment for the private sector. Let me take 2 examples in Ukraine, for example. We are supporting very actively Ukraine reform architecture, which allows us, with EU support and other donor support, to finance experts, focusing on reform, on supporting EU accession, and improving project implementation capacity, which is so much needed at the current juncture in Ukraine. And we are implementing the same approach in Moldova. Another example related to Ukraine is energy security. One route to providing this is supporting full market integration with the EU. And to do that, you need to implement solutions to monitor energy market abuses. This is a key requirement for EU integration, and it also promotes market coupling and unlock private investment while advancing decarbonization through renewable energy exchange. Turning to Western Balkans and taking an example for this region, we provided a 100 million euros loan to the North Macedonia Electricity Utility, ESM, and with policy reform to support the implementation of the energy community reform agenda. And in Moldova, our gas storage investments and facilitation of energy trading, vital to address the country's energy crisis, have supported EU energy legislation. So mixing up project financing and policy reform is really key to make progress to the towards the enlargement. Many of the reforms we support are critical for the systemic change required to progress to the next stage of the enlargement process and joining the EU. The prospect of accession for many countries has been and is a key incentive which encourages reforms which facilitate investment and development of private sectors. This is really a virtuous positive circle. To conclude, I would just like to make 2 comments. First of all, we really need to build collectively, to build on the existing momentum for enlargement and to make concrete progress. so as to overcome the risk of enlargement fatigue that we sometimes see in the Western Balkans. This is why having this dynamic approach, allowing to access some of the EU policies as far as progress are made, is so important, and I think it's a very promising avenue. The other comment I want to make as a conclusion is that you can count on EBRD commitment, working very closely with other IFIs and in EIB in particular, but also all other partners, to continue playing a major role in preparing candidate countries for EU enlargement and as a strong and reliable partner of Team Europe. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to Odile. We're running a little late, so I'm going to quickly call on the panel for this afternoon, the first panel this afternoon. Kim Jørgensen, Permanent Representative of the European Investment Bank to the European Union, will moderate this panel. And the panelists are Dumitru Alaiba, Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Economic Development and Digitalization from Moldova. Paola Papanicolaou, Chief of International Banks Division at Intesa Sanpaolo. Robert Groot, Vice President, the European Investment Bank. Antonella Bassani, Vice President, Europe and Central Asia Region of the World Bank. And Vahe Hovhannisyan, Minister of Finance, Armenia.
Is the sound on? So thanks a lot, and also thanks to the co-panelists here. And I think I will start with what the Commissioner ended with. The Commissioner said, if we dare, and we do. And I have been quite much involved in enlargement processes myself, and I remember the historical EU presidency in Denmark in 2002, where 2 months before the summit in Copenhagen, nobody believed that we will have a chance to conclude. And even at the summit, things dragged on, and the gala dinner with the Danish Queen was giving to the policemen, and the prime ministers were giving lousy sandwiches to keep the focus a little bit more on the substance. So I think, again, now 21 years after, it's again time for bold decisions, and the bold decisions are certainly needed. We are in a very different geopolitical situation, and as the Commissioner said, for the first time we are negotiating with a country at war, and the candidate countries is also at very different stages. So we also have seen very bold initiatives, sort of like the growth plan for the Western Balkans. I think that's quite of needed. And financing, of course, is also needed. And EIB, we have been in all the enlargement processes since '73. And then I think it's also very good to see the huge effort made by the current Polish presidency and the upcoming Danish presidency. I know are also keen to close and to advance as much as possible. So I think with these words, I will now join my co-panelist and Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Economic Development and Digitalization in Moldova, Dumitru Alaiba, and then Antonella Bassani, Vice President for Europe and Eastern Asia in the World Bank, and Robert Groot, Vice President here at EIB, and Vahe Hovhannisyan, Minister of Finance of Armenia, and then Paola Papanicolaou, Chief of International Banks and Intesa Sanpaolo. So I will start with you, Minister Dumitru. Moldova and the package that the Commission has launched of 1.5 billion for Moldova. How are you seeing that, and how are you taking that process forward, and what are your priorities?
Thank you so much, Kim. It's really great to be here and to exchange ideas, and congratulations to the friends and partners from EIB for such an event. Indeed, the way we put it in order to really illustrate what this financial package, the growth plan as we call it, means for Moldova, it's really an opportunity to speed up. It's an opportunity to double our economy in the next decade. It's a very clear vision of what we need to do in order to speed up the economic growth, which reforms and the sequencing of these reforms that is put in place need to be implemented as soon as possible in order to unlock growth. And this is really also my message to investors, that investing now in Moldova means at least doubling or even tripling your money in the next 10 years. And that's, again, not fantasy, and it's not wishful thinking. It's really the path that has been, and the transformation that has seen half of the European continent 20 years ago. And we are, Moldova, Ukraine, we are exactly at this point of a few years before and a few years after accession. This is how we see it. We don't plan to waste too much time. We want to speed up on the reforms. We want to speed up on the negotiations in order to ensure for our people that European integration is not only about idea, it's not only values. We share the European values, and we have proven it time and again. But in order to attract as many people as possible to support European integration, it has to be also about prosperity. And the growth plan and the investment plan that is, the investment pipeline that would come with it is a huge opportunity to do exactly that, to provide prosperity for our people, to show that European integration delivers for each person, regardless of their, the language they speak and where they live, and regardless of the gender and so on. It's really about that, and of course the contribution and our partnership with European Investment Bank, with EBRD, is vital to this in order to fund these meaningful projects, from education to social infrastructure to roads, bridges, energy, and many other directions, in order to really show transformative power of European integration. You walk on streets few hundred kilometers west from Moldova, and you really don't recognize the place compared to 20 years ago. And this is what can happen in Moldova, and this is really our message to our people, and this is what the opportunity behind this unprecedented financing package means. In order to really deliver for our people, and to turn these uncertainties into also an investment opportunity, be it about the energy, be it about the infrastructure, be it about the private sector. It's a country that can change and can change fast, and we've proven it time and again. And this is, again, it's a really good moment for Moldova.
Thanks a lot. Now the Commission changed sort of the methodology of enlargement a couple of years ago, and now we have 6 clusters. So I mentioned the current Polish and the upcoming Danish presidencies. What are your ambitions? How far do you think you can be able to go this year?
Well, as fast as possible, and spare no time and no energy on this. And really, it's we really we've missed a lot of opportunities in the last 3 decades. I'm sure we could have been there a long time ago. We could have been there in the 2000s. We could have been there in the 2010s. Unfortunately, corruption. Unfortunately, of course, not without the Kremlin's help to keep us stuck. We have missed a lot of opportunities, and we do not want to waste any time. So our target, our deadline, and we're serious about 2030. I'm confident it's feasible. We're a small country. Small countries have the advantage of moving very fast. Europe is full of small countries that have done it in a few years, and this is exactly our standard, let's say.
Okay, and thanks a lot. And then I will turn to you, Paola. would you suggest any sort of improvement in the financial instruments that we provide and how the financiers sort of work in the candidate countries, and what do your company actually do to help the candidate countries?
Thank you. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. So let's start from the products and the solutions. I think, and the experience we have built with you is an experience of innovation. So the product, the solutions and the services we provide to our clients in partnership are the derivative of something, of a thoughtful initiative. Also by listening to what the country, the clients would need. So Intesa Sanpaolo has an international presence. We are in 25 countries, and in 12 of them, we operate through banks. We have been long-term investors in most of these countries. We have a presence in many countries that are now entering, and hopefully will enter pretty soon, the EU. So Moldova is one of those, Serbia is another, Bosnia is another, and moving forward, Albania, and so on, and Ukraine that we heard before. We have had a very long-term presence, and we believe that working together with an institution like EIB is fundamental. In the last 5 years, we have provided close to 700 million of resources together, and over half of those have been addressed to non-EU countries. What we believe as an institution and as a partner, as I was saying, both of the countries and the economy, is that a bank is not only to operate transactions, okay, this is our main activity, but in reality, what we must do and what we embrace a lot as Intesa Sanpaolo is to advise, sustain, growth of individuals, growth of companies, and growth of countries. We are working closely with the countries, for example, also a lot in supporting public finance and relevant, impactful projects in infrastructure. A second very important pillar on which we believe, and we have taken also ambitious targets, numeric targets, and we are one of the few banks that has numeric targets, is ESG and energy transition. And we are working a lot on that. For example, recently together we have defined a package of 160 million in Serbia that are to support energy transition, innovation, and SMEs. So I think there are very concrete actions we can put in place. And it is very important to be on the ground as well, very on the ground, to understand which are the needs, the upcoming needs. And again, as I was saying, sustaining, starting from the individuals. So we're looking at the video before in Ukraine. It's also supporting the culture, the education, supporting the people in need to get an education. And for instance, something we are working on and we are doing is we are also opening foundations in the countries where we are. And it's a way to give back in a different way, but to give back, sustain, and believe in the growth of that country.
Very good, and thanks a lot, and very inspiring to hear. But what about the World Bank then, Antonella, to turn to you? I mean, how much have you engaged, and how do you actually see your role in the current situation?
Thank you very much, and let me first start by saying it's a true privilege to be here participating in this EIB forum to discuss how the World Bank Group is supporting countries going through their accession process, and how we can help ensure their success even beyond membership. The EU accession process for us is a catalyst for growth, for jobs, for prosperity. And so we really focus on supporting it with all the means we have. We are committed to its mission, and we support it through financial resources, through technical assistance, to policy advice, and to help countries navigate through this process. And our support starts early. From the time when we define country partnership strategies, we look at possible reforms and investment countries want our support for, and match them with the requirements of EU accession process. So to give an example, take Moldova and Ukraine, which are undergoing and advancing ambitious and fast-paced accession efforts. We have mapped every single activity of the World Bank Group against specific EU chapter, negotiating chapters, in order to make sure that we target our support to where is most needed, and we also strengthen the capacity of our team to provide the best advice and support we can. In this country, there's an example of how we support institutional reform and strengthening to advance on those processes, including support for strengthening anti-corruption measures, competition policy, private sector support, modernizing public administration, or advancing the rule of law. Another example is the work we do in the Western Balkans, where clearly regional economic integration will be very critical for advancing the accession process. And there we focus on elements such as trade and transport connectivity, trying to address constraint to that. We are supporting a project already in its second phase to try to simplify trade procedure, digitize, automate trade, and improve trade logistics. And another area is financial integration. In the Western Balkans, if you are a small or medium-sized enterprise and you want to transfer 5,000 euro, for instance, within the Western Balkans region, it costs 10 times more than if you do it through the SIPA. And there again, we are trying to support their efforts to leverage the SIPA integration with already Albania and Montenegro making good progress this year. One other area of support for us is infrastructure development, and we are working very closely there with EIB and EBRD and other development partners. And overall, one lesson from our experience in supporting accession countries is that this is a dynamic process. It requires adaptability, continuous reform, and a commitment over the long term. And this is why our engagement often does not stop at accession. We are still working with some countries who have become members to further support their institutional development and administrative capacity, such as in Poland, Romania, Bulgaria, or Croatia. In conclusion, we are strongly supported to this process. We focus our assistance in accession countries to support the accession process, and we look forward to continue to do so in close partnership with EIB, EBRD, and other development partners and multilateral institutions. Thanks.
Thanks a lot. Maybe asking a question on where you ended. I mean, how do you see the division of labor between you and us and EBRD and other financial institutions?
I believe we're working very closely together and always looking for additional ways to improve our cooperation. Actually, it was just last week I was meeting with EBRD and this week with EIB because we have a very common agenda and the needs of our countries are very significant, so any one of us is not sufficient. I think we leverage each other, both financial and expertise, very well. And we do it in particular in areas where we can advance not individual projects, but large programs that have a multi-year, multi-sectoral approach.
Okay, thanks a lot. And then turning to you, Robert, we talked about the growth plan for the Western Balkans. Can you give me some sort of concrete examples on how the EIB are supporting the Western Balkan countries?
Well, thank you very much. And it's not a surprise to anybody, I think, that for the EIB group, supporting accession is a key strategic priority. And sometimes we inside the European Union forget how difficult it is to go through this whole process. And I think we have to do our utmost to support the candidate countries in this process. And I was struck very much by what the Commissioner said, transformation along the way, and also what Odile said, investment is not enough. And I think if you add those two together, we should do much more than just mandated by the Commission, do investments in accession countries. This is about planning. It is about procurement. It is about reforms. And the EIB group is lucky enough to have a very strong, extensive advisory support unit with many engineers and many economists to help the countries in the accession process to move on. And if you ask for examples, the technical expertise you need to be able to bring across a very good infrastructure project or energy project or even education, and like Odile said, be active in reaching out to small and medium-sized enterprises. This requires a lot of knowledge. And what we would like to go, and we partner with the EBRD quite a bit, is to jointly see, including the extensive usage of our advisory service, to bring the best results to the investments we are doing in the region.
Thanks a lot. Maybe, Paola, you could, I don't know if you can elaborate a little bit on this use of technical advice. You said in your intervention also that the presence on the ground was very important, and you mentioned a couple of sectors.
Yes, so it's not only a matter of having the right product and of course the finance that we do by default, but if we want to support the growth in countries and the growth of individuals and the growth of companies, what we need to do is to somehow support them during the way. So let's say that providing the finance is the first step, but just the first step. But then supporting the transformation, we were talking before about transformation, this is a key element. And to do that, the way is to advise. To do the advice, we need to have the competencies also. So it's putting together, and here is where the partnerships are needed. So we are a financial institution, so we are pretty good in numbers. Still, if we want to support companies, there are other parts. There is the cultural change, there is the competence, there is the technology, there is the innovation. So finding the right partnerships and the right competencies to bring them to the company through the capillarity of the branches of the banks, of the relationship managers we have on the ground, and that they speak to the clients daily. I think this is something that really supports that marathon the Commissioner was talking about. And it's really supporting and being next to the country in the different counterparties to support that change in a continuous mood and way.
Yeah, no, thanks a lot. I have to say that when I joined the EIB, I knew about all the money, but I had no clue about the value of the technical advice, and that's actually really an important part of the whole business model for all of us, I think. But maybe then let me turn to you, Minister of Finance from Armenia. Your parliament in February, I think, was adopted a resolution on EU, and you have initiated a process. So how are you seeing the main challenges, and how are you actually also seeing the DCFTA, that you have the deep and comprehensive free trade agreement with the European Union?
Thank you very much. It's my great pleasure to be in this wonderful panel. First of all, I want to say that this initiative which you are mentioning is coming from our society. So people signed and gave this order to the parliament to approve it. So this is aspirations of our people in our country. And if we talk about benefits of Armenia by accessing European Union, I think we have to also look at the benefits of European Union by accepting Armenia, because otherwise, I mean, this marriage will not happen. And there are a couple of things that we have to look at. One is most probably the infrastructure gap that we are having, and the prosperity in our country that we are having. In the past few years, we have doubled our GDP per capita, but it's still around $8,000, and I think we still have a way to go to be closer to the European average. I think that one other important program that we are doing and we have offered to our neighbors is the Crossroads of Peace, where, because you know that our region was suffering by a long-lasting conflict, and we now see that having a peaceful resolution and partnership in the region is essential. And I'm happy that EIB is also financing, helping us to finance part of that infrastructure, and I think that that will help also to Armenia to be part of the middle corridor, which is also, I think, very important for Europe to have an alternate connection to China. And if we are talking about mechanism on how we can work with our international partners, of course, in recent years, we invest in the infrastructure with our colleagues. We do lots of reforms, and we are very fast in doing them. But I think there is one important aspect that we are focusing on now, which is the attraction of the foreign direct investment. And I thought that, especially by using our private arms of international organizations, we could try to have innovative solutions to attract, to bring in some foreign investors to invest in our countries and to think of a mechanism to co-finance that investment. And I think this is something that maybe we could further explore to see if that can work. And of course, I mean, whatever we are doing now, I think we are quite successful in this cooperation. And maybe worth mentioning that I'm happy to see that with EIB, we are in recent 2 years, we are very actively working on new projects, and hopefully they will be very successful. Thanks.
Thank you very much. You mentioned that this parliamentary resolution basically sort of came from society. So how are the voters, the populations, how are they looking at a possible candidate status for Armenia?
Yeah, there's lots of excitement when the parliament accepted this, because it was based on the, as I said, on the signatures of our citizens. And but we have to make sure that we are moving fast, that our people do not have to wait for many years till that happens. I mean, their understanding is that this law means lots of things, but we have to, we all know that there's still a long way to go to reach there.
And maybe again, turning again to you, Robert, also, I mean, our support maybe to the Western Balkans and Armenia. I don't know if you want to add a little bit on that.
Well, the numbers are going to grow, and we are very happy, for example, in Armenia to already have reached the 1 billion, and I think the same holds for Moldova, where we've signed about 30 billion. Of course, the Western Balkans is a bit more, where we've been working every year for quite a while. So, but let's not forget that also the situation amongst the Western Balkan 6 is quite different, and some are moving quite rapidly. For example, Montenegro, I can clearly see an impetus happening in Albania, and some others a little bit less. But we continue to interact with them on a daily basis and try to get these projects across the line, and especially those infrastructure projects which are cross-border. Because I think when it comes to people in the region being able to communicate with each other, to have mobility in that very difficult region. I mean this in a geophysical way. I think that is where things started, has been said by colleagues here on the stage too, but we have to continue to work and get these things done. And in all of the countries, for example, in the Western Balkans region, it means they have to adapt their laws, their regulations. They have to set up their agencies, their procurement agencies, their planning agencies. And this is a lot of work, which I fully understand. And at the same time, there's the population which wants things to move very fast. And it's always, I think, a dilemma and a challenge to be able to satisfy both. But in the end, this is all about transformation along the way of cooperating with them, which we will do every day also in the next years.
Thanks a lot. I think we have time for a couple of questions, so I hope there will be questions out there. It's a bit difficult to see, but if there are anyone who wants to have comments or ask questions, then please raise your hand and also introduce yourself. Okay. Yeah. So nobody wants to ask any questions. So maybe, I don't know, Commissioner, if you want to comment a bit on what you have heard here on stage.
Whatever I do as a commissioner with my team, I always start with the question, why? Because if we do not know why, how we could come to the best answers to how and what. So why do we enlarge? Why is the European Union today bigger than it was right after the war when 6 countries decided to become a member of the EU? So why are we enlarging today? Because we are unifying Europe. Until many steps in the history, it wasn't possible to be together because we had an Iron Curtain, because some countries lived behind this Iron Curtain. We had the Berlin Wall. And then when those barriers went away, it became possible. When we have signed deep and comprehensive FTAs with Moldova, Ukraine, and Georgia, we didn't imagine that they will apply for the membership. So that's why they got really very good deep and comprehensive FTA compared to the Western Balkan countries. And when I was talking to people from Kiev, from the government, they told me that on the second night, when they have been in shelter after the war started, they decided to apply for the membership. And I asked the Minister of Foreign Affairs, how did you come to this idea? And he told me this was the best idea we ever had. So they have seen opportunities joining the EU. My portfolio is very interesting. I have Armenia, Azerbaijan, Turkey, Western Balkan, the 3 countries I have mentioned. But perhaps soon, I don't know if anybody is from Iceland, perhaps soon my portfolio will be bigger with Iceland. We are already talking to them. And when I asked them, you know, we have already finished 11 chapters in the past negotiating. And when I asked them why, they told me, we want to belong to a community of values and democracy. Can you imagine? Probably European Union, if it goes like it is going on now, will became or will be the only island of democracy and values. And this is not easy today. You know, when I speak about the geopolitics today and how to bring all the member states, perhaps also Armenia, in the EU, then I am confronted with the paradox or discrepancy could be between the geopolitics and the necessities of bringing all of the candidate countries as soon as possible into the EU. When I was at the Munich Security Conference, one of the US congressmen asked me, but you know, if we want to have Ukraine in the EU, let's take them in tomorrow. I said, you know, it doesn't work like this. It really doesn't work like this. So it's not an easy process. You said that you wanted to have a marriage at the end. So of course, also European Union has to be in favor of you. But first it is, and this is a bit of my joke, first it is merit-based, that it can be marriage-based. So merit-based means that all the candidate countries have to deliver, that we can have a marriage at the end. It's not easy, but we support you, and we have all the money until the new MFF, until the 27, until now. So we have all the money now, so it is the right time. Then, you have also said for the MENA, I liked it, you know, that our people do not have to wait for the EU membership. When my country got independent, you know, I grew up in the communist Yugoslavia. And I grew up 15 kilometers away from the Austrian border, and we didn't think about becoming a member of this capitalist world, which is not that fair as our communist world is good. And I have been asked many times, why didn't you move to Austria if the borders have been open from Yugoslavia to Austria? I said, why? Our life was good. It wasn't that good, but we have opened doors for all of us. So for me, when I say why, first it is about, for us, EU, it is about unifying, it is about unification of Europe. And I will now close with this. Not the United States of America will bring any country in the EU, only we can do this. And not Russia will bring any country in the EU, we only can do this together. And it's great what we are doing now, but we shouldn't forget that, you know, we have had many crises before in our history, and we have managed all. So I see the opportunity today when we have to answer to what is happening in the US. It's a big opportunity to us, for Europeans, to show, yes, we can.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So I think we have to finish here. I'm sorry there was a question here, just to say that we have heard a lot about also Team Europe approach, and I think that's extremely important that we work in this Team Europe approach, but I think we also need to work in a team financial institutions approach, but that I think is also what we do. So thanks a lot to the panelists, and thanks a lot to the Commissioner, thanks a lot to Odile, thank you, all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the Sting Master as well. Thank you very much indeed. We're going to have a coffee break. We all need to move again and just to become recaffeinated. We'll be back here at 30 past.